Romans chapter 9 is one of the key passages some theologians look to as the foundation to form their idea that God is in control of everything that happens here on earth. And on the face of it, Romans chapter 9 does seem to be saying that God is in control of everything. There, Paul talks about how God loved Jacob but hated Esau. He says that God hardened the heart of Pharaoh, and he uses the example of the potter's clay which cannot tell the potter how to fashion it. Theologians use this chapter together with three passages where Paul uses the word predestined in his writings as the basis for their doctrine that God controls everything that happens. And a great many Christians believe that today. In fact, I believed it too until I studied it out for myself. You see, the overall point Paul is making in Romans chapter 9 is that those who believe the promise of God are the ones who are rightful heirs of Abraham, not those who are physically descended from him, nor those who obey the law. And he says it in this key passage here. But it is not that the word of God has taken no effect, for they are not all Israel who are of Israel, nor are they all children because they are the seed of Abraham. But in Isaac your seed shall be called. That is, those who are the children of the flesh, these are not the children of God, but the children of the promise are counted as the seed. The rest of the chapter is devoted to proving this point, and to do so, Paul starts with Jacob. So let's talk about Jacob, Esau, and God, and see whether or not God arbitrarily chose Jacob over Esau. Jacob was the child of the promise, even though Esau was the firstborn and should have received the blessing in the natural. Paul highlights this by quoting Malachi about God loving Jacob but hating Esau. His point is not that God arbitrarily chose one over the other. Instead, Paul is saying that God sovereignly chose to carry the blessing on to the one who believed the promise instead of the one who is next in line in lineage. If you remember the story, Jacob put so much value on both his birthright and his father's blessing that he schemed his way into getting both of them. Jacob believed in their value far more than Esau. For example, look at what Genesis has to say about the birthright. Then Jacob said, "Swear to me as of this day." So he swore to him and sold his birthright to Jacob. And Jacob gave Esau bread and stew of lentils, and then he ate and drank and arose and went his way. Thus Esau despised his birthright. Esau despised his birthright that was his so much that he traded it away for a light lunch of stew and bread. Jacob had a very different view. He valued it so much that he took advantage of an opportunity to trade it for something his brother wanted just to feed his own flesh. Jacob had tons of issues, but he did value the things of God. Esau had at least as many character flaws, and on top of those flaws, he also despised the things of God. Their priorities affected their destinies. As we can see, God did not arbitrarily pick one brother over the other. Instead, God responded to what was in each of their hearts. Because God is in eternity, outside of time, he knows the end from the beginning. And that means he knew how much value both Jacob and Esau would put on the things of God. But knowing something will happen is not the same thing as causing it to happen. Instead, God used his foreknowledge and his plans to bless all of mankind through those who believe his promises. And that's what Paul's getting at when he says, "As it is written, Jacob I have loved, but Esau I have hated."